Joining us once again here on a Monday on In Touch with Indiana Sports is, of course, the one, the only Mitchell Paige, former Indiana football wide receiver, here to talk once again about the undefeated Indiana Hoosiers, now 8-0, still at number 13 in the AP poll, but the AP poll is about to be obsolete for those like myself who have been, tracking how well Indiana is going to jump up in those rankings. It's about ready to be college football playoff rankings time. I don't know if it's this week or next week, but it's coming up. Anyway, let's talk to our man Mitch, who of course was at the game once again. He's been at every game at home except for the FIU opener. He was there for game day. He was getting down and dirty with the crowd, I'm sure. So Mitchell, go ahead and I want to hear your opening thoughts first on just getting there. What was your game day experience like for being in Bloomington this past weekend?
Yeah, I got spoiled is what happened this weekend. Usually I'm about the cheapest guy you can imagine, so we'd always park in the Poplar garage and then walk the 2.5 miles that it takes to get to the stadium. This week we had a parking pass.
Oh, did you now?
For one of the parking lots like 500 feet from the entrance. We got there at 6 a.m, had our little fire going. I've been spoiled. I don't know how much those cost, but those will be in my possession next week or next year probably.
So you got there super early. What was the tailgate like at 6 a.m. with a fire?
We were the first ones in the lot.
Wow.
It was
okay.
Honestly a really cool. We were probably the only ones there for like 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And then it started filling in fast. There were a bunch of other people coming early. I think I've said this every week, but if you have not been to a game, John, we were talking about this pre-game or pre-podcast. If you haven't been, find a way to get to Bloomington. You got 2 chances left. There's just something about the air there right now. There's a little bit of magic. You've
been saying that too since probably week 3, maybe. You've been talking about the magic in Bloomington for a while. I'm starting to really believe in it.
There is something. I don't know what it is. There's something. It's you feel like untouchable when you're there. And then the team comes out and just rolls people, which just adds to the aura that is Bloomington right now. It's a crazy, I can't even explain it. They're so good. They can beat you in every way. I don't know. We talked about it, I think, last week, but there's a lot of teams that I've watched this year that are supposed to be pretty good. I don't know.
So with sticking with the early morning hours, did you decide to get into the thick of things with the college game day crowd since you were there so early?
I tried. There were thousands of kids already there. When we walked over at 6:45, there was still, it looked like a full set of people. So I walked over there, but I never got very close because it was packed.
How do you feel that Bloomington has handled having a lot of people at the football stadium consistently now? Because I heard a couple of Nebraska fans, you could probably guess which ones. It's really just one Nebraska fan and a Purdue fan. And they talked about some parking or traffic issues in Bloomington. Do you feel like they've rectified that, or is that just people angry about Indiana football?
There's always been traffic, and there's just a little bit more traffic. There's 60,000 people, probably more, on a bunch of single lane roads. Like, there's no way to rectify it. I don't care if you have everyone going one direction and you got to loop. There's no way. It didn't matter if it was before or after. Like, there's just a bunch of people around. It's fine. I had no problem even when I was parking where I was parking before. It was a lot easier with the parking pass. But yeah, I think they've done a fine job. There's bathrooms everywhere. Now the lines are pretty long because there's so many people, but if you think that it's a bad experience going to Indiana, I can't help you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I
really hope that I'm able to make it up there for one of the 2 remaining home games. And I don't even know at this point in time which one is more likely. I'd love to see them face either one. I think Indiana's going. Honestly, here's what I'm saying. I think Indiana's biggest chance to lose, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, is this weekend. And it's not because I think Michigan State is that much better than Indiana. I don't think they're better than Indiana at all. But to me, it's just the fact that it's week 10, technically week 9 for Indiana because they've had a bye week, and they haven't been in a real road environment. And I have no reason to think that Michigan State won't show out against a team that is as good as Indiana. Maybe I'm already diving into this now since I've already brought it, so we can go ahead and go down this path if need be. But it's definitely going to be something we haven't seen any part of this Indiana team face, whether it be Taven Jackson or Curtis Rourke, who ends up taking the snaps this coming Saturday. It's going to be a unique environment. And I do think Cignetti will have them prepared. I do think it was helpful that they finally had a little bit of real adversity this past weekend against Washington. And when I say real adversity, I know they still haven't trailed, but Indiana, it took them a while to really put away this Washington team. And when you had the way that this team finished the first half, where they couldn't get across the goal line, 4th and inches, whatever it was, 3rd and inches, it felt like it would have been a guaranteed touchdown. You end up settling for a field goal. And then you follow that up by throwing an interception on the first play or second play of the first drive of the third quarter, and Washington goes down and scores to make it a 3-point game. That's probably, you could correct me if I'm wrong, Mitchell, the most adversity that this Indiana team has faced all season long, and they responded in a big way.
Yeah, it was definitely the most adversity. I may be different than other people. I never felt like we were in trouble, though. They moved the ball really well, Washington. I think they're pretty good on offense. But for some reason, man, these guys, they're stingy. They make plays when they need to, Indiana on defense, and they do just enough on offense. They just pounded Washington to a pulp for 4 quarters, and eventually you're just going to break when you're getting 6, 7, 8 yards a pop running the ball with a quarterback that really had I thought, harder time finding his rhythm. I thought he played fine. He just never got into his kind of flow that allows you to really get explosive, but they stayed on schedule. It never still felt like the game was in doubt. But you are right. I think Michigan State losing to Michigan maybe helps Indiana a little bit because the crowd may not be as
and I agree. I
excitable.
was worried if they were to beat Michigan, them feeling juiced coming into
Right.
the Indiana game. You know, I mean, they'll be juiced anyway, but having that extra oomph after you beat your in-state rival with Michigan.
Yeah, they put up a heck of a fight against Michigan. Now it might be a little bit of a pillow fight between the two teams because I think Michigan
It's
stinks.
cheeks.
Dude, they stink. But they're still physical, and it's a rivalry game where anything can happen. I think Michigan State's a little tougher than people want to give them credit for. Their record maybe doesn't show it, but I agree. I think outside of this past weekend in Washington, this is a game I look at on the schedule where it's like, ooh, I don't know quite how I feel about that one yet. I think having Curtis Rourke back, a 6-year guy that just feels like he's in total command all the time, is really going to help. Cross your fingers that he's going to be back. But even with Taven Jackson, I think that Indiana is going to be able to control the tempo and control the physicality, control the line of scrimmage really effectively, and kind of do what they just did to Washington, where maybe it takes a little bit longer, but eventually you just lean on them long enough that you make enough plays, defense makes enough plays. And I don't think Michigan State's offense is near as potent as Washington. I thought that quarterback played great. So I think that if it's a Taven Jackson type game, I think it's another one where you just lean on them and kind of suck the air out of the game over the course of 4 quarters.
You know, one thing that the announcers kept mentioning on Saturday is that Washington has, even though they're only 4-4, they were 4-3 before the game, they were 4-4 after the game. They have outgained every single one of their opponents, which is a very interesting stat to not have a better record. And they actually did the same thing this past weekend against Indiana, which I don't know if I would have guessed that. And it was barely. It was 318 yards to 312. And they did do a good job at kind of making the Indiana offense, I don't want to say try to be more creative, because I don't really think Indiana did a whole lot of things creatively when it comes to the offense. But what they did do well was just manage what they were able to do. I think one thing that this Indiana team does better than maybe any team in the country is just knowing what they're good at and playing to their strengths and not trying to do too much to try to just do it because it's the flashy play. You didn't see Taven Jackson do anything that was truly out of the ordinary for him this week. And I think that really goes to show how well Curt Cignetti coaches this team into making sure that they know exactly what they're supposed to do. Even if they're in situations that maybe aren't favorable, they're not going to do anything dumb to put themselves in position to make a stupid mistake. Even the interception they had, it wasn't a stupid mistake. It was just a really hard thrown ball that really you could have thrown PI at it if you wanted to.
You could have. How could you not? He was there a second and a half early.
It's almost like the fact I think the play happened so fast that the officials didn't realize that they could have called PI on it.
I mean, he's standing right there. I
think the fact was, again, we don't need to talk too much about the non-call, but I think the ball was thrown so quickly at whoever the receiver was at the time that by the time it bounced off of, I don't know if it was his helmet or whatever it was, they weren't even thinking about the fact that the Washington defender kind of ransacked him before the ball even was able to get to him.
I don't know how you don't think about that. How do you get a bounce? Like, you think that he just punched the ball backwards?
I'll say this. I did watch, and you're aware of this, Mitchell. I watched the game yesterday, so I didn't have to watch it with all of the stress of what the hell is going to happen. So I wasn't angry when I saw the play. So maybe not having that emotion toward it is why I'm talking differently about it.
I wasn't angry. It just was stunning. Like, there's a middle judge, a back judge that's standing 5 yards from it. There's a side judge that's standing 8 yards from it. There's referees everywhere. How can no one see this? And I think that's been kind of a universal theme in college football. Some of how these guys have jobs as referees is stunning. And I'm not saying this group is a part of it, but I think it's more of just a kind of a pandemic in college football. So when that kind of stuff happens to you, you just kind of take it and, all right, let's move on. This is what the game is. Don't have robot refs yet.
Not quite like the I guess it's the ML. Is it the MLB? Do they don't use robot umps, but they use
the
some sort of
zone or whatever.
Yeah, the robot strike zone.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Let's talk some big picture stuff. And we've been slowly diving more and more into this, I feel like, as the weeks have gone on. This team is now 8-0. They have tied their best start of all time in 1967 when they went to the Rose Bowl. All it takes is one more win, and you're officially, I mean, can we go ahead and say that because it was the 60s, do you think that this is, no matter where they finish, right, Mitchell,
Yes.
do you think this is the best Indiana football team of all time? It may sound ridiculous to make that statement, but when you know how many bad football teams Indiana has, I don't think it's as difficult to declare that as some may think.
Yeah. I mean, they went to the Rose Bowl. It's awesome. Great. I'd have a hard time believing there's a team in history that beats this one.
Yeah.
Just they're multiple, they're balanced, they're physical. And sure, I'm sure that 19, this is no disrespect to those guys. They done the coolest thing in program history, but not for long, I would imagine. Yeah. I would imagine that we will not be talking about the 67 team as much as we do because everything that they did is about to be outdone, is my guess.
Yeah, and again, one win away from 9-0, and who – I was going to say who really knows what the ceiling is. I think we know what the ceiling is. It's just a matter of will they get it done. This team absolutely has the ability to get to the Big Ten championship game. They absolutely have the ability to be in that first 12-team college football playoff. And I think they have the ability to knock off elite teams. I know it feels like the only people left that are regularly doubting Indiana are those, it's not necessarily those who haven't watched Indiana, but it's those who regularly watch, the Ohio States, the Oregons, the Alabamas, those who are always at the top of college football. They're just waiting to see Indiana compete against one of those guys before they fully buy into whether or not this team can do it. And, I tend to fall into I don't want to necessarily say I believe everything that they say, but being kind of I'm definitely a positive person, like half glass full when it comes to outlook on my team, usually, even when things aren't going well. But there's always that creeping doubt on will they be able to put together the type of performance that we've seen when they do play those that do have the elite talent. And I do think Indiana is a part of the elite teams. It's just a matter of can they go toe to toe with those guys when the pressure's really on? I think they would be able to. But again, I mean, we're going to see that here in the next few weeks. They got Ohio State coming up. I mean, even though Michigan's having a bad season, or, by their standards, not having a very good season, they still have all the talent in the world to where if you do beat them to a pulp, I think that would be, I mean, that should definitely be, again, another indicator that this team is on a different level compared to most. But you'd still see people doubting. I don't even really know what it would take. I guess maybe winning the conference for people to stop thinking this team is just benefiting from an easy schedule. I know I'm kind of going on and on here, and I've mentioned multiple things. So I'll let you shut me up, Mitchell. But I just wanted to mention all that stuff.
Yeah, I think I have two things. I have two answers to this. One is more the reality of the situation. I'm on Twitter a lot, and even am getting people saying they've never played anybody. They haven't. Those people are morons. You don't understand anything about football. You don't understand college football. You don't understand how much talent are on any of these teams, right? Western Illinois and Indiana, there's a big talent gap. Washington and really anyone else, UCLA and really anyone else. I mean, you watch what UCLA started doing. They went to LSU, who most people think were going to win the SEC, until they go to Texas A&M and barely lose in one of the toughest environments in the country. UCLA had them on the ropes. Indiana beat the brakes off them. So if you don't understand how this all works, then you can continue to doubt Indiana. If you've watched them for 1 second and you watch how they beat people, you understand that there is absolutely a chance that Indiana is as good or better as any team from any conference that they could play for the rest of the season. That's just the reality. I don't care what conference they come from. I don't care what it says on the side of their helmet. Indiana is as efficient and effective in every phase as any team in America currently. That's just the reality. If you want to say no, you're a moron, but fine. The reason that I say fine, I kind of like it. I think Cignetti and the boys kind of thrive on how stupid people are to continue to doubt how good they are. And I'm starting to feel real good about Columbus, even. Not even
And and a
this
lot of it,
weekend, Michigan. Those ones feel kind of like stepping stones, just kind of kick them out of the way. And thankfully, I'm sitting here and not in the locker room. I'm sure they won't treat those games that way, but just kind of see you later, guys. Thanks for playing. We'll
here's the way I look at the Ohio State game now, too. Not only did they struggle with Nebraska this past weekend, and I do think Nebraska is better than what they did against Indiana. I do think a lot of that is because of how good Indiana is.
Yes.
But here's why I like the way the Ohio State game set up. There's a couple different things. Believe it or not, I kind of like that this is a road game right now. At the beginning of the season, I didn't, because people would chalk it up as an automatic loss or something that you should lose. But Ohio State right now is already feeling the pressure because of the way that their fan base is. And Indiana basketball is the same way as it, by the way. Because of the pressure that Ohio State has to perform and live up to these expectations, I don't see them playing loose against a potentially undefeated Indiana team that, again, I don't want to say they have nothing to lose, because at this point you do have something to lose. But again, you're playing with that chip on your shoulder that everybody doubts you. You're going into the shoe. People think you don't have a chance. Ohio State's going to be expected to perform well against an Indiana team because they are perceived to have this superior talent to everybody else in the Big Ten. And that's one reason why I like, with this current situation, I know I feel like we're getting way ahead of ourselves right now. We still have to watch them play Michigan State and Michigan, but it is fun to talk about what could happen because we are potentially going to get there eventually. But I think that tends to favor Indiana because Ohio State already has a loss. They lose again, they're not going to the Big Ten championship. They may be able to sneak into the college football playoff depending on what happens
just because of their
in other
helmet.
conferences.
That's it. Just because of their helmet.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the
and
only
so
reason.
they're going to be feeling. I mean, Indiana can afford to lose, and probably still they can get in the Big Ten title game with a loss potentially, and make the college football playoff with a loss. And
if Ohio State beats Penn State, Indiana is driving the Ferrari to the Big Ten championship. Yeah, that's just the reality. It's just the reality. There are 2 undefeated teams left in the Big Ten, Oregon and Indiana. And I
Penn
don't think
State's unbeaten. Penn State would still be.
that's
They'd
what I
be
said.
3-0.
If
Yeah.
Ohio State beats Penn State this
Oh,
coming
okay. I thought you
weekend,
said the other way around. I got you.
I may have said the other way around. What I meant is Ohio State beats Penn State, driver's seat. Driver's seat.
But again, though, then there's still that very weird scenario where you could have. And actually, I talked about this with Jeffrey the Greek last week, where you have a big tiebreaker and you're 11-1 or whatever. But here's the silver lining with this I didn't think about. There's almost a benefit to being on the outside looking in with that tiebreaker and not playing in the Big Ten championship, because you'd probably get a not as good seed in the 12-team playoff, but you get to rest your guys if you have anybody who's hurt that needs to fully recover. And you're still, I don't see any one-loss team from a power conference missing out on the playoff, even if you do miss your conference title game. So there's almost, a good, you don't want to miss the Big Ten championship, but there is some benefit potentially if there is a tiebreaker scenario and you're 11-1 and you get to sit out an extra week before the playoff.
Yeah, I would argue that if you get to the Big Ten championship, even with one loss, you'll probably host that first weekend. And you still got to win. If you win the Big Ten championship, obviously that's best case scenario. You don't even have to play the first weekend. But if you miss out on the Big Ten championship, you're probably going to someone that's pretty good in the most insane environment that stadium's ever seen.
Yeah.
Because you have to, whatever home field advantage a team has on a weekly basis during the season, multiply it by 100 with this on the line. We've never seen anything like this. So you have to factor in, there's the 12th man. This might be the 13th, 14th, 15th. Like it is going to be a different world. I think you need to do everything you can to find a way in there so you can be the one hosting at worst.
I've made the, we'll find out whether or not this ends up raining true or not, but I feel like these first round college football playoff games are going to give off similar vibes to the opening weekend of the NCAA tournament. And I know those games aren't played in home environments, but the chaos that ensues with those types of games, and I'm not saying that you're going to see road teams upsetting the home team a lot, but just the environment is going to be similar to that of a NCAA tournament type of a game for basketball, just because it feels like there's so much more on the line when you get to that. And again, we've never experienced it with a 12-team playoff, so it'll be brand new, but it feels like it's just going to bring that type of energy when you get to that point.
For sure. I think it's, in my head, it's the AFC NFC championship games. That's what's in my head. It's home. There's a chance to go to the Super Bowl, especially if Indiana's hosting. I can't even imagine what that place is going to be. They might have to build an upper deck just to house all the people. But yeah, you can't underestimate how important it is to have that at your place if you're going to have it. I think it's because football is so much different than basketball. Basketball, you can make some threes and kind of keep yourself in it. In football, you got to deal with the front seven in the offensive line. That's why you don't see those big upsets very often, because the big people usually win, and all the big people are at the big schools. So, yeah, Boise State beat Oklahoma however many years ago. That was awesome. They've played great against Oregon, but Oregon eventually wins. Boise State looks awesome this year. They're going to have to beat somebody that's bigger, faster, and stronger. Now they got a great back, but at their place, you're going to have to go in there and win. And it's the same thing in basketball where, it doesn't happen very often, that 12-5 kind of upset, but it's at least once a year. And I think football is just so much harder because it's so much more physical to get an upset like that.
Yeah.
So you need to have it at your house, I think. Which is crazy that we're even talking about this.
Yeah, and again, that's why I keep as you are speaking on this segment. For some reason today, I'm thinking in the back of my mind, like, what are we accomplishing? I feel like my fear is that we're 2 weeks down the road and we're like, we're a bunch of morons. We've lost 2 in a row. What were we thinking? I don't want to think like that. That is the previous Indiana football mentality that has been instilled in us because we have been taught that we are the bottom of the barrel. And I don't mean to say we. I know I'm just a fan. I guess Indiana in general is a bottom of the barrel program. They should not be here. And then that's what I'm trying to get to escape my mind, because this is not that. This is Curt Cignetti's Indiana, and it's something that's totally different. I hope it lasts a long time. That is also something that continues to worry me, is that somebody, and this is going to happen regardless. I just hope that the Indiana administration is prepared to counter whatever any other big time program throws at him, because he's going to have bag after bag after bag thrown at him if he hasn't had it happen already. It would not surprise me in the slightest if those down at the University of Florida or at programs similar have already talked to him personally about doing something after the season. And I think, again, just based on the way that Cignetti carries himself, I don't think he would humor it right now. Maybe he would talk with him after the fact. But you know that the big time programs want this guy. There's not a program in the country that would turn down a Cignetti at this point. And then we'll wrap this up after this. I know we're going pretty long, but I did want to bring that up at least once.
For sure. It's hard to win. It's almost unbelievable what he's doing right now. And not almost. It just is. And there's Maggie in the background. Say hello,
Shout
Maggie.
out to Maggie Paige.
It's really hard to just do this week in and week out and create this in what seems like 5 minutes juggernaut team that just rolls over everybody. And there's going to be other schools that maybe don't have better budgets. I think one of the most what people don't know the most about Indiana football is how much money there is. Can you hear her?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
She's fired up this morning.
She is fired up. She's still unbeaten too, by the way.
She is unbeaten. She's 16-0. People don't understand how much money there is in the football program for upgrades, for players, for coaches. In the last year and a half, the influx of cash into the program, I don't think people really understand or can comprehend. Now, can we match the biggest of the big, the Texas A&M type offer to Mike Elko? Probably not. But no, neither can anyone else. And if that's what drives Cignetti, I wish him the best. I think what Indiana fans can kind of sleep well at night knowing that, one, he's 63, going to be 64. He's got all his buddies with him at Indiana, all the coaches he's been with forever. His wife loves it, as he continues to talk about. And he's still kind of in the process of building something, right? Like there's potential to turn Indiana into a year in, year out kind of juggernaut with what's in place. With what's in place. She's talkative. And he kind of strikes me as someone that may want to see that through, because he turned JMU into that in FCS, was on his way in the FBS, but it's not in the biggest conference. Now you're at a place like Indiana that's in the biggest conference. You can turn the thing around, which he seems to love to do, and you can also do it on the biggest stage imaginable in college football. With all the things that are going to be changing over the next couple of years, if you're not in the Big Ten or the SEC, kind of feels like, sorry about you. They seem to be running the world, and he's got a spot there, and with a fan base that would literally die for him. So,
and that's the thing, Cignetti. I don't think anyone at this point, honestly, unless they get fired, no head coach is leaving either the Big Ten or the SEC for the Big 12, ACC, or any other conference at that point. You're either going to stay within conference or jump to the other major power. And of course, in this scenario would be the SEC. So we'll have to wait, and that's a bridge we'll have to talk about or cross and talk about after the season, potentially. Who knows? And there's plenty of other angles we can look at once we get to that point in the season. But for now, we're going to continue to enjoy it. We are going to, hope that this ride continues on, and, the stakes continue to get higher and higher Again, they're going for their best start in school history against Michigan State. They're battling for the spittoon once again, the first of 2 trophy games for the regular season. This used to feel like the pinnacle of what Indiana was playing for. Get your trophies back, the spittoon and the old oaken bucket, and that was it. Now it just feels like, not I don't want to call it an afterthought, but it's just different. They're playing for something more. So
I will tell you, there's nothing like going and getting that trophy back.
The spittoon or any
Any
of them?
trophy, just running and getting it back that's a different feeling.
Yeah.
Even if it's on your sideline, whatever it is, like after the game, I know probably no one else in the country cares about those 2 trophies, but it's a different kind of feeling when you have that. I bet the boys are fired up today. I guess that they're going to have a pretty good week of practice because the rivalry games, they do matter, especially inside the building.
That'll be interesting to see. I always think of Ralph Green when I think of the spittoon, by the way.
How can you not? That big picture of him holding it up.
Yeah.
Spitting in it. Disgusting.
Indiana football icon, of course. Iconic picture.
Disgusting.
All right, Mitchell, I've kept you way too long, but I know you've enjoyed it, so I do appreciate it. And I hope we get to keep having fun conversations. I know I say this at the end of each segment every week, but again, like you said, it feels like magic. I don't want the magic to disappear. I'm enjoying it, and I hope it stays around for a long time coming.
Keep it going forever. It's the best year of my life.